Firstly, I'm going to start with a rhetorical question. What comes to your mind when you think of a law? Or furthermore, what comes to your mind when you think of a law being made? Does the president come to your mind? Does your U.S. Government class that you failed come to mind? Or, does the president, all these words, Congress, House of Representatives, the Senate, blah, blah, blah. Does any of that come to your mind? Maybe, maybe not. Well, there's this one person that came up with a quote that put it simply like this. Laws are like sausages. It's better not to see them being made. Well, personally, I disagree with this quote. Because for me, when I read this, I thought of past events, such as, in history. I want to tell you about a few points that I thought about. For example, first one is women's suffrage, which was the women's right to vote. Secondly, prohibition of alcohol, how they basically took it out. You couldn't sell, you couldn't drink. It was totally against it. And then how they brought it back. Anyway, so it wasn't until, I don't know the time frame or anything, but for the longest time, women weren't allowed to vote, and you all know this. Now, it took a very long time, and it took many events, it took many struggles, it took many hardships, but finally, women had the right to vote. Now, secondly, with my other point about prohibition, alcohol was being sold, you could make your own liquor, buy, drink, anything. Well, after a point of time, a lot of people don't like that, so they prohibited it. So then, after a while, they brought it back again. Now, during that time, many events happened. Lots of struggles happened, lots of hardships happened. Then finally they brought it back. But anyway, my point is about those two things there, is that it was made apparent that you could see, it's as if you didn't see it happen, if you didn't see those events, then, maybe you couldn't understand, or maybe, that's hard for you to grasp. You had to see those events. Certain events had to happen for you to understand. Certain things had to happen. So, with this quote, it says laws are like sausages, it's better not to see them being made. I disagree, because maybe you had to go through those events to see them being made, to understand, and to really, to understand, and because otherwise, if you didn't see it, maybe it wouldn't be how it is now. And that's all.
All right, Josie, I like the attention device. It was a little strange that you're identifying the attention device at the beginning. I want to start with a rhetorical question. I think you could probably just ask the question. But I thought the visualization was pretty good, and then the transition to what your topic quote was fine. And your point of view is clearly stated. You've even got a preview of what the content is going to be. Problem is, when you get to that content, you don't have much to say about it. You basically repeat the preview, and then I know you've thought about those things, but apparently you didn't know anything about the two things that you picked to talk about. How long was the struggle for women's suffrage? When did it occur? Why was it worthwhile, even though it was a complicated process? Why was it important for us to see that struggle? Anything that you could think of. If you could remember examples, that's fine. But even talking about it in a vague way, I think you could get a little bit more on it. And basically, you just repeated the point again. And you did a little bit better with the second one on prohibition, but not much. And then you just kind of wandered around for a while. It just felt like you were lost, looking for something else to say, and didn't really have much of a plan. And I think you want to stick to that thesis that you came up with and kind of come back and talk about why it's important that we do see how these things get done and explain that a little bit more. Even if you had to add another example, go out of the preview, that would still be better than sort of the meandering that you do, I think, in the second half of the speech. On presentation issues, you're much quieter than I think we were expecting, and I think you're operating in a narrower range of emotions than you might want to have. A little bit more energy would be advisable. The pacing is awkward in a couple of spots. Anytime you get lost, there's a pause, and at the end, when you're trying to find an exit, you also run into this stretch where you're so uncertain about what you're going to be saying next that we can see you questioning in your own head, where am I going next? And the anxiety then pops up on your face in a couple of spots. Your gestures are a little bit limited because you've got the quote in your hand the whole time, and you're not quite playing with it, but you kind of hold on tightly like this is your safety rope that you're going to keep a hold of, and you won't fall off of the ride if you keep the quote in your hand so tightly. So I thought I saw a little bit of anxiety there. Like I said, at the end, when you got stuck, that seemed to be where most of your issues with anxiety came out, and you bailed out on the speech with the famous "That's all, folks." So you know how enthusiastic I am about that as a conclusion for the speech. So, but I thought that like I said, I thought you had a pretty effective opening, and you do, to speak to us. There is some energy in your voice. I just thought you could do a little bit more, and it just, maybe you need some better examples so that something that you were more enthusiastic to talk about. All right, thank you. The truth is, I know everybody was probably already thinking about sausages as soon as you said that. They started thinking, oh yeah, breakfast, that would be good, If only we could get this test done so quickly, I could go and have some breakfast. Sausage McMuffin, that's on my list of things to do.
Wait, after the test, we can leave, right?
You can, but the rest of it, everybody else can.